Aloha, namaste. This is Radha Home with your full moon forecast for this Sunday morning, 8:28 a.m. Hawaii time, which is 10:28 a.m. Pacific time. And so the moon will actually be fullest Saturday night, right? At least in these earlier time zones. And she's happening in the star of Aslesha, which is the very end of Cancer. This is the part of Cancer where we see the mother, right? Cancer is the sign of the mother, clinging to her children. It can be referred to as the clinging star, or the embrace of a serpent, of a snake. It's ruled by the Naga, which is the snake kingdom. And the Naga really represent our subconscious. It's the kingdom in the lower realm that hold up our conscious reality. If we think of Vishnu on his thousand-headed serpent, Anantasesha, he's dreaming up the worlds that we're experiencing. And what's holding him up is all this subconscious stuff. And so each of us have that within our own psyche, right? We have all the things we're not really aware of. We can be more conscious or less conscious with our subconscious, depending on how much, dream access we have or how much work we do in this realm. But ultimately, all those unresolved fears and doubts and, past experiences that we hold affect what we're able to create in this realm. And since so much of what we hold is in that realm of what we would call negative or does not feel good to us, things like fear, we have a tendency to hold and to cling because we are afraid of losing something. So just like a mother might nurture and nourish her child, in the star right before Aslesha is called Pushya, it's the nourisher, where she's feeding her child, right? When it's a baby, when it's young, you just feed it, and as it gets older, you feed it in a different way. You feed it, you still feed your child, but you feed them emotionally, and you teach them skills to get by in the world and to have social emotional skill set and regulation. And then there comes a time when your child's ready to leave home. And for many mothers, it can be really hard to release them. It can be excruciating, really, to have cared for something so much and then to just trust that it'll be okay in the wild of the world, knowing it's going to be met with all these things you couldn't fully prepare it for. So this is where this star gets us in trouble, where we don't trust that whatever we've nurtured is going to be okay in the world. And we cling to it. And just like a snake can wrap itself around its victim or friend and continue to tighten itself so much that it can suffocate it, this is what can happen with this star. All of the serpentine energies have with them this dual reality of both poison and nectar. And the mythology really talks about this and tells stories about this, about how there's this poisonous quality to the snake kingdom where you need to be aware, but also from that, you can, if you're willing to face it, if you're willing to, take in the poison and transmute it, you can reach the soma, the immortal nectar. And so this is a star that can also bring quite high spiritual realization if we know how to access the poison and transmute it, as opposed to just being so intoxicated by it that we're unable to let go, that we're unable to release. So I'm going to share my screen so we can see the chart of our full moon. And of course, the moon is right across from the sun, which is still in Capricorn. So our new moon that set off this cycle was in sidereal Capricorn, where we're hardworking and really to all ends. Like the point is to survive. The point is to get the work done. Sometimes with Capricorn energy, we forget to care about people. We have this tendency to really, make the ends the most important thing, and maybe use people and things along the way in order to get our ends. it's all business, business first. Well, when the moon is full, it's reflecting the opposite energy of what the new moon cycle set off. So the entire month from new moon to new moon is a Capricorn month. Even when the sun shifts, which it will before the next new moon, we have this energy of working hard, meeting our goals, and ultimately surviving, not just another day, but in the long term, right? It's Saturn's sign, it's long-term survival. And it's facing that primal fear of death, that we're not going to survive, actually, that the odds we're up against are insurmountable. We will die. So what are we going to get done in the meantime? How are we going to meet all these goals and deadlines that we have for ourselves before we die? Which is ultimately what the pressure of Saturn is putting on us. And even though the ruler, Saturn, himself moved in this moon cycle into his other sign of Aquarius, where we're more futuristic, we're less about, just putting our nose to the grindstone and surviving. We're more about what legacy we're going to leave the world and how do we improve things so that even when our physical form is passed, things are different on Earth. Things are different in the systems that we employ. And we've left something better than it was before. We still have this Capricornian survival energy for the month. And Cancer is reminding us, hey, people matter, their feelings matter. It's not just about getting the job done. It's not just about getting to the end of something. We have to stop along the way and check in with one another. The ends do not justify the means, right? Having a fully built house is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that everybody living in the house or everybody working to build the house is feeling okay in that regard. And so it's a time to really stop in and check with our feelings. Oftentimes this leads to that clinging energy that we see in Aslesha, is that everybody's feelings weren't accounted for, right? The children, we didn't stop enough to check in with our child along the way. We pushed them through life because they had to get to school and we had to get to work and they had to eat and they had to be here and they had to be there, and we didn't stop enough along the way. So we feel like we haven't left them into the world, or they're not launching into the world with fully regulated, nervous systems and capacity to handle all the different things that come at them. We haven't done that for ourselves. So how could we possibly do that for our children? We haven't had that done for us by our parents, right? So we have this lack of nourishment, this lack of nurturance, and it lends to us feeling fear because everything isn't on the table. So this is one of the highest lessons of Cancer, and we've been sort of slowly learning it over the week. If you get my weekly stars report where I talk about the transits for the whole week, we've been working with this as the moon was joined Mars right after joining Rahu at the end of last week, where we might have had a lot of illusions about how we feel or how other people feel. Then we might have some anger. Then we might have had some feelings of irritation. And this has been an ongoing thing with Mars and Taurus, where we're irritated that other people are keeping us from what we need to get done or our own discipline. And then we had the moon in Gemini, in Mercury's sign, right across from Mercury, who's just finishing his bout in Sagittarius. And we're really reflecting, and this has been since Mercury was in Sagittarius, so since before the new year even began, this idea of our communication and our beliefs around communication and how we say things to people and how much it comes from our subconscious and our fears and our confirmation biases and not necessarily truth. And now we're here in Cancer, and it's like, okay, so we've learned better communication skills. Maybe we've managed our anger, but ultimately, how do we feel? How do I feel? And might I ask how you feel? Because it matters. And we often let that wash away. We often don't prioritize how we feel. We often prioritize, or how other people feel. We often prioritize what needs to get done The society we live in is very much focused on getting things done and being productive, as opposed to being whole and happy and secure and feeling connected to one another, which is what our feelings are about. So this cycle really offers us that. And we have a drishti from Jupiter. So one-way gaze. Jupiter gives a 5-house gaze, the house of children and creativity and love. The 5th house gaze has to do with that. And it's on our moon, reminding us, and they're both in their own sign, right? The moon's in Cancer in her own sign, Jupiter's in his own sign of Pisces. So they're offering us, he's offering us this wisdom, this higher wisdom, to remind ourselves that our feelings matter, to remind ourselves that ultimately God, goddess, spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it, is not coming from a perspective of just wanting our details on earth to be complete. If that were the case, then what would be the point, right? If our point is just to survive in these bodies, and we ultimately know the one thing that's not going to happen is survival, right? For sure, the one thing we know is we're all going to die. These bodies, this flesh and bones, are going to age and die. So if keeping that alive as long as possible is the point, then we've missed it, right? There has to be something higher. There has to be something more important. And in order to get to that very highest mystical place, we need to stop and check in with ourselves. Not just stop and smell the flowers, as Taurus would have us do, not just stop and take a bath and take care of ourselves and be sensuous and enjoy beauty and pleasure, but also check in with our innermost self and how we're feeling, because that's our experience of the world. And that's what storehouses all that fear and all that anger and all those things that then are what hold up what we create in the world as our reality. So this is a really important full moon, and it's it's the full moon of the first new cycle of the new year. So it's reminding us that this shift from Saturn and Capricorn to Aquarius is not just about getting out of the mud and getting into the air and the ideas and the people and community and starting to engage, but that each individual person matters, and that we matter. And that we matter. So we have Venus and Saturn still joined in Aquarius. And Venus will be here until the 15th of February, so the day after Valentine's Day. Saturn is going to be there for 2 years. So we have a long time to learn the Saturn in Aquarius lesson, which is really about community and about the whole group, the whole society, the whole world fails if we're leaving people behind. And Venus brings in that element of enjoyability, making things friendly and fun and beautiful and romantic. She also brings in this element of caring about one-to-one relationships. That's what Venus deals in, one-to-one relationships. They don't necessarily have to be romantic relationships. They can be business partnerships. They can be friendships. But the thing about friendships is they often don't have mutual needs that need to be met on the table to quite the same extent. Of course, you want your friend to care about you. You want to care about them. And you want to maybe enjoy wherever you go. You both want to enjoy going there. So there's some level of compromise that might need to happen. But most of our friends are on our side. They're on our team, if you will. And they're not living with you or doing business with you or having the situations that are very primal and survival based that we need to come to terms with. They can just cheer you on as you make your choices, right? Hopefully, those are the kind of friends you have. So Venus deals in the kind of relationships where we have compromise, where you need something, I need something, and we need to come to terms over that. And it affects our life. Like it affects us on a very deep and primal level, and our insecurities and our fears and all that stuff in our subconscious is present. Venus sometimes wants to override that and make everything fun and happy and sweet and nice and not deal with what's submerged, not deal with the feelings. But really good relational skills require diving deep, right? and sharing not just the positive, but also the negative. And that's true in friendships as well. Sometimes we'll just suppress what we feel when it comes up with a friend because it's like, whatever, it's okay. They said something, I didn't really like it or hurt my feelings, or I didn't really like the way they dealt with that, but whatever, that's just that person, and we peg the person and move on. But if we're able to share how it made us feel, we can cultivate so much deeper intimacy with our friends. And this is a lot of what this Venus and Saturn and Aquarius is offering us. It's offering us an opportunity, particularly on this full moon, because Jupiter is in his own sign and the moon is in her own sign, really allowing us to feel our feelings. We have an opportunity to create one-to-one relationships within the collective where we're not sort of negating some people. There's always going to be people we prefer and we vibe with more. And then there's going to be people that we kind of don't like as much. But if we can make peace with all those individual parts, then the collective works better. Part of the problem we have, and we see this really well with school children, right, is this sort of ganging up in a group over here and, I don't like that person, or that person's different, or we don't like that whole group of people and we're this group over here and you're that group over there. But children learn this from adults. Adults do this too. We just do it in more of a fake way. We have a tendency to pretend we like people or be polite or whatever that looks like. So the need is to drop the facade, drop the fake part and really own what experiences we're having so that we can create that real intimacy between individual people within a collective. So that's a big theme that we're going through right now. And as soon as the sun moves into Aquarius, we're going to really feel that in our next new moon. We'll really feel that shift fully take hold, because right now, while Saturn himself moved there, the sun is still in Capricorn, and the sun is our sense of power. The sun is the owner, the lord, the ruler of Leo. And that's right across from Aquarius. So both of these two signs, both of Saturn's signs, the sun struggles in because it's where we don't feel our power. It's where we're very humbled. We're so humbled that we sometimes struggle to see the light. Saturn can have us so aware of our limitations and so aware of the boundaries that keep us from being able to do what we need to do, and so aware of our failings and how hard life can be and how much it can take us down, that we can struggle connecting to the light. We can actually have trouble connecting to our consciousness, our source. And particularly in Capricorn, we can see that this just gets us stuck in the mud. With Aquarius, it's the opposite energy. So it gives us an opportunity to see the king in everyone, to let the power be dispersed amongst all people, and to perhaps move out of our humility and trust that each one of us holds some kind of medicine this world needs. There's something that everyone has to offer, even the village outcast, even the loony bin over there, or the person who's, so angry or so volatile that everyone's afraid of them and shies away from them. Even the people we feel uncomfortable with have some kind of medicine that we all need. And if we outcast them and we don't find a way to bring them in, and we don't find a way to transmute that energy, then it's going to continue to fester and sit there and be a sore on the collective. We can be over here pretending that everything's fine and dandy in our little world and keep excluding and trying to make it, a smaller and smaller world so that those negative vibes don't get in. But if it's out there, it's in here. Right? Anything that's over there is also here. So we need to find that within ourselves first, in our feelings here with Cancer, and then in our one-to-one relationships. And particularly while Venus is in Satta Bishak, we can really see the corruption in relationships. We can really spot that. Satta Bishak is the stars at night that is able to see everything that's going on beneath the shadows, beneath the shadow of the sun having gone down beneath the horizon. And we're able to move into a position where we start to dissolve some of the power structures that have existed for so long. and that aren't just from governments and, these people who hold a lot of the world's wealth, but are in each of our little dynamics. One of the things I remember learning in India that was really fascinating to me, they have the caste system there, and I spent a lot of time with different families. And I remember being with this one family in South India, and this boy, this man, young man, was of a lower caste. He was of the lowest caste, but he was of the higher part of the lower caste. And I don't completely understand all the dynamics of the caste system as it works today functioning. I understand it more in an astrological sense, but he was of a caste that was the lowest, but yet he was the highest of the lowest, right? And he said to me, I'll just never forget this. He said, well, those people can't even come into my house or eat off of my plates. Those people are, we don't allow them into our home. And it was just so fascinating to me because, of course, I knew that about Brahmins. And of course, I knew that about that each of the higher castes had those feelings about the lower caste. But it was fascinating to me to see that somebody of a lower caste would have that same opinion about the people lower than them. And I realized in that moment, and continue to realize again and again and again in our world, how people with power sort of give other people a limited amount of power and tell them, well, you have power over those people. And then you have power over those people. And you're better than these people. And it just is like a procession going down where each next person gets to feel a little bit important, right? They have a little bit of power over other people. They have a little bit more rights, or they're a little better than those people over there. And that's enough. We're like, okay, as long as I'm better than someone, that's good enough for me. Well, this time with Saturn in Aquarius, and like I said, it's a 2-year cycle, is kind of breaking free of that. Like, that's a top-down model that doesn't work, right? Because at the end, none of those people, other than the ones at the very top, actually have any power, And I see it very well in capitalist society in America and in Europe, where people of sort of the upper middle class think of themselves as being wealthy often, when their wealth could go like that, right? Unless you have deeply, deeply steeped wealth, many generations, your wealth is one step away from being gone. The economy just needs to shift a little and everyone falls. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion, when you're deep in credit and everyone has to buy something that's out of their price range. Maybe you could afford this house outright, but that's not the neighborhood your kind of people live in, right? You need to live in this other neighborhood where you need to take out a loan. You need to have this kind of car where you have to lease it. Everybody is in this situation where well, not everybody, but the vast majority of people are in a situation where they're living outside of their means in the Western world, and particularly in America, where we're very credit happy. And then there's these people at the bottom who don't have any means to live within at all, right? Well, at least we're not them, at least we don't have their problem. But in an instant, everyone could be in that same position. And it's because we continue to pander to and allow this top-down society, this top-down way where there are kings. And we're like, well, maybe one day I'll get to be that king. Maybe one day I'll get to be there. And so it's important to recognize the ways in which we have our own caste systems and our own lines that we believe keep us safe and keep us from being there. That might be an illusion, and might not be founded in such hard truth or reality. And also to recognize the ways in which we use that to decide that we are better than other people, and that some people don't deserve to be a part of the community or the society. Some people don't deserve to have a home. Some people don't deserve to have even a job, and some people don't deserve to have food, right? I mean, most people wouldn't say that with a straight face. Some people would. But there is a good percentage of people that would maybe say that I've actually had someone tell me that, you know, yes, no, the government shouldn't take care of anyone's needs. And no, everyone also doesn't even deserve a job to work to be able to take care of their own needs. But most people on some level believe that, even if they would never say that out loud, because we live it. We live it. We walk by the people on the street every day and we're like, they must have done something wrong to be there. We walk by people all the time who are struggling and we don't stop to help. So this is something to take into account, you know, and maybe those people have poor social skills, or maybe those people don't have, you know, don't have whatever the skill set is to function in society. But if we continue to outcast because they never learn those skills, so if we don't do something to help give them those skills or find a way to somehow accommodate their most basic need, and not just for food and water and shelter, but for love and care and compassion, then we'll always have this sore on society. We'll always have this thing festering in the background, and it will always be something we have to build more and more walls and more exclusion to keep out. So starts with our feelings, and it starts with believing that our feelings are important and erasing some of the lines. And that's really what Jupiter and Pisces does, is it erases the lines around what we believe and gives us an opportunity to believe deeper, to connect more, and to have our connection to source be immediate, right? Not through all these practices or through all these teachers or through all these through lines. We need to get to truth. Truth is there. It just is. It's in us, it's around us, and it's accessible at any time. And the most immediate access is through the heart and through our feelings. So if you enjoyed this video, you can like it, you can comment, and you can share. If you have not yet received your Saturn in all 12 rising signs, I did a breakdown for how the Saturn transit is going to affect each of the 12 rising signs. You can sign up for my email list at www.radhahomeyoga.com, and you can get that. And I do also these bi-monthly reports for the full and new moon, and I've started doing weekly forecasts, so you can see, and I break those down for each of the signs too, so you can see how each week is running for you. So I will see you again real soon. Happy full moon. Namaste.